everybody, it's great to see you today. Welcome to Living Power, your online Bible study. We're walking through the Bible in a year, and we are in 2 Kings chapter 13 today. Today is June 19th, and we see an assassination in the reading today. That is just one thing I love about the Bible, is that it doesn't leave anything out. There's intrigue, there's murder, there's just anything you're looking for. In an adventure, a love story, it's all right here. And today we see an assassination, and a successful assassination against the king. Now today's reading was quite short. I wonder if some of you maybe were behind in your reading, which happens from time to time. You probably thought, oh, this will help me to get caught up today. And I was surprised too that it was actually only about 2.5 pages. So what I want to do today is talk to you about 3 things that I've pulled out from the reading, and of course go into as much of history as we need to. The first thing I wanted to cover with you was the story of Elisha. I mean, of everything we read today, yes, the intrigue, the assassination is so interesting, but I couldn't help but be amazed at this little blip that was in the reading today when the Israelites were, I guess they were at night, burying a dead body, and they heard some Moabite raiders coming, and they were like, oh, what are we going to do? And they throw the body in, and I guess they run away, and the dead body touches the bones of Elisha. And remember, we had talked earlier about Elisha and Elijah and how their lives were very similar to the life of John the Baptist and Jesus himself. And did you remember what happened when the bones, or the corpse, actually touched the bones of Elisha? The dead corpse came back to life. And I take that as literal. I take that that really did happen. There is another time in the New Testament when dead people actually come back, and they come back to life, and they actually visit some of their relatives in Jerusalem. And that was when Jesus came back from the dead on his way to heaven. That actually happened. It's only in, I think, one sentence in the New Testament, and it's so easy to be missed. But this isn't an isolated incident. If you know Jesus, you have resurrected life. And we're going to see that again in the New Testament, which is coming later in the year. So I love that about Elisha. And the second thing I wanted to talk to you about was this whole assassination with Joash. And now Joash is a southern king. We talked about him yesterday. In 2 Kings 12, 17 to 21, it kind of tips us off just a little bit and tells us something about what happened here. There is a war, as you can imagine. Syria is attacking, has invaded I think it was Gath, which is a southern old Philistine town, and that has decided to come up north just a little bit and attack Jerusalem. Has killed all the leaders in Jerusalem. This is a major invasion. And Joash is panicking, and he is paying off Syria with a bribe. And he's giving him the things of God. Now we're in 796 BC, and this is a big deal, this whole invasion. And I wonder sometimes in seeing that, what would it have been like if we were the king and we were pressed in on every side and there was nothing that we could do and we were not victorious? Would we also give him some things out of the Lord's treasury just to pay him off and subdue the enemy? How often do we rob God in trying to solve our own problems? How easy it is to often think, well, we'll keep some of the tithe for ourselves when it's hard to pay the bills. But what we're actually doing is robbing ourselves when we rob God, because we rob ourselves of the blessing. According to God's economy, and perhaps I need to hear this myself today, According to God's economy, if we give to Him first and give Him the full tithe and do not rob Him, He owns everything anyway, and He has complete control and abundant resources. He will make sure that we have enough. But interestingly enough, that when we think we need to pay the bills first and we'll give God what's left over, there never seems to be any left over. But if we do it the other way first, in paying Him first, there just seems to always be enough. You know, this action of Joash shows us the weakness of Israel at this time in their history because of their apostasy. Turning away from God does weaken us, doesn't it? And certainly it did for Joash also. The assassination was about Joash, and he was assassinated today. It says 2 of his trusted officers. So these would be 2 men inside the court. 2 men that he trusted, that he had access to him, actually plotted against him and assassinated him. And it gives their name in 2 Kings chapter 12. And in 2 Chronicles, remember I told you how 2 Kings kind of gives man's view and 2 Chronicles gives God's theological view. It gives us a little bit more information. I love reading them together. Don't you love how this Bible gives us the opportunity to read these events side by side, which will be good for us too when we get to the New Testament and we're reading the same things in the Gospels side by side. It'll be good. 2 Chronicles chapter 24 says, they murdered him because Joash had murdered the son, we talked about this yesterday, the son of the high priest Jehoiada. And they were kind of I guess they thought they were making things right because that certainly had been a wrong. And they assassinated Joash. Joash was the king of Judah, so he was a southern king. And this was how his life came to an end. Now the third thing I wanted to mention to you, I need to flip over in my Bible, maybe you do too, but we are in, let me tell you where we are here, 2 Kings chapter 13. And it says King Hazael of Aram. This is the northern country, right, directly north of Israel. They have opposed Israel during the entire reign of King, here's another J, king. I don't even know if I want to try this one. Jehoahaz, that's easy, Jehoahaz. And it says, the Lord was gracious and merciful to the people of Israel, and they were not totally destroyed. But evidently, this king of Aram had his day and did some destruction to Israel. It says, God pitied them because of his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And to this day, he has not completely destroyed them or banished them from his presence. This is the concept of a remnant, and we need to understand that. God always reserves a remnant, and he will always do that for Israel. He was allowing the Syrians to come against Jerusalem because this was judgment against them for turning away from him. So he helped Syria win, but it says he pitied them, and he's not going to allow them to completely fall. He will be protecting a remnant because of his covenant, because God keeps his promises forever, and he has this covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So, my question to you today is, who are you most like? Are you like the corpse that touched a dead body, that came in contact with the risen Lord and now has resurrected life? Or perhaps you were like Joash with a really good start and ended up backsliding and ended up robbing God and is in a place now where you just wish you weren't, and you want to turn from that, and you see maybe you need to do something differently. You know, it's better to be a dead corpse in the hopes of revival than it is to be a glorious king who turns away and ends badly and ends in weakness. So, just something to think about for us today. Who are you most like? You know, if you know Jesus, you know resurrection, and you know new life. And there's always hope for those who trust in him. Well, today was a short reading, so we're going to have a short lesson. Tomorrow we're going to talk about Jonah and the whale. We're going to learn a little bit more about this prophet, and we're going to talk about the Assyrians. So tomorrow will be a very interesting day for sure. Blessings to you on this shorter lesson than usual. I pray blessings on you and your family until we meet again tomorrow.